Hello class and welcome again to Test Prep CA8 Part 1 question number 9. On this question we have two groups of things. We have additive and multiplicative equations. So I'm going to go ahead and start with explaining additive and multiplicative equations and what those graphs will look like. And that's going to help us figure out which of these equations match up with which graphs. So let me start first with additive. Additive equations are very special equations because additive equations, you always add something to x. Like for instance, if I had the equation y is equal to x plus 3, then I'm adding 3 to my x value each time. What that means is that if x is 0, y is going to be equal to 3. Now, in case you had trouble following that, let me show you how I got that. What I did was I substituted 0 for x, and 0 plus the 3 is equal to y. So y is equal to 0 plus 3, which is equal to 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. So y is equal to 3. So in other words, when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 3. And that's a coordinate pair. Now, that's good news for us because it tells us that additive equations will not go through this special point called the origin. The origin is the point on the coordinate plane that when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0. And on these graphs, basically, let me just draw in red where the origin is. We have the origin there, the origin here, the origin here, the origin here, and the origin here. So in these graphs here, let's look at which ones do go through the origin. Because if it goes through the origin, it can't possibly be an additive. It can't possibly be one that has an additive equation, okay? So this one, C and D both go through the origin. But A, B, and E do not. So A, B, and E are all additive equations because they do not go through the origin, which is what they're supposed to not do if they're the additive. So if they're additive, they do not go through the origin. So I'm going to go ahead and just write that more clearly now. Now we also have another type of equation, and as you probably guessed, yes, this is the multiplicative equation. And the multiplicative equation looks like equations like this. Y is equal to 3x, which basically means y is equal to 3 times x. They don't show the multiplication symbol here, or they don't show the dot, but that's what it is. Y is equal to 3 times x. So I want you to imagine that x were 0. If x was 0, if I multiply x times anything, it doesn't matter what it is, what is y going to equal to? If I multiply 0 times 3, I'm going to get 0, right? If I multiply 0 times 4, I'm going to still get 0. If I multiply 0 times 1.5, I'm still going to get 0. Anything I multiply 0 by is going to give me 0. So that means when x is equal to 0, y is also going to be equal to 0. So with the multiplicative equation, it's important to realize that it is going to go through the origin. It is going to go through this point 0, 0 on your graph. So I'm going to just go ahead and erase that and write it more neatly for you to see. So now we know the difference between an additive and a multiplicative equation. An additive does not go through the origin, as we said, and they're in the form y is equal to x plus 3, where you're adding something to the y value. The multiplicative, on the other hand, is you're multiplying something times x value, and it always goes through the origin. Make sure you recognize that. That is going to help you out a lot. So just looking at these graphs here, we could tell which one's additive. So I'm going to put an A for additive and an M for multiplicative. This one here does not go through the origin. Here's the origin here. It does not go through the origin. It gets close, but it doesn't go through. So this would be an additive equation. This one here does not go through the origin. Here's the origin here. It doesn't go through it. So this one's also additive. This one does go through. So this would be a multiplicative one. This one also goes through, so this would be another multiplicative one. And this one does not go through, so it would be an additive one. And so basically, we've already determined which of these graphs are additive and which ones are multiplicative. And that's going to help us out when I get to the next part of this video. So I'm going to start a part 2 for this problem, just so that we can work through it without it crashing on me, okay? So go ahead on to part 2 of this problem.